You should sit down.
I have a couple of very brief comments and then a question at the end. I think the election before the last one, where the Conservatives received 39% of the vote, what's often forgotten is that 39% is of those who actually voted. When you calculate what that percentage, the true percentage is for those who are eligible to vote, in fact only 21%. It was only slightly better with the Liberals this time. So it's, those percentages are even worse, where you have 20 to 25% of people who voted essentially changing or altering the country. For that reason, I'm going to go against what everyone said here. I'm actually in favor of mandatory voting for that exact reason, because without mandatory voting, I hear what you say, Professor Russell, about spoiling their votes, but the statistics also show that the number of spoiled votes in Australia is actually consistently below 10%. People, when they get there, even if they've been dragged there by the threat of a $50 fine, do vote. And it's caused them to have at least something to do with the process of democracy. So that's just a quick comment. Two other things. One is, I'm coming to it. I used to run a large technology company. You're absolutely right about online. Don't go near it. Don't go anywhere near online. My programmers, if they were not good people, could get into anything they wanted to, and that's true 10 years ago as it is right now. Nothing is safe online. My question is, why now? Why now has this become so important? I know the Liberals promised it, but we have to really examine why it's become an important issue. I think it has a lot to do with what happened in the last 10 years, that there was a sense that somehow something was being taken away from us that we didn't like, or that maybe our sense of democracy wasn't being respected. And I think it's an important element of whatever system we choose. We have to understand why we're doing these things. So I'd like to hear any one of the three.
I think, I agree with you. I think it had a fair bit to do with the last 10 years. A similar thing turned New Zealand on. They had 10 pretty awful years of not one government. They had two governments, one Labour and one National, and they both disappointed. They didn't perform the way the people wanted. It was different than the Harper situation, but people were saying we've got to get a better system. But in the Harper 9+ years, I think what bothered people was something. What bothered some people, obviously not everyone, was a parliament in which a party that had, again, just split to 40%, just shut out all other kinds of thinking and ideas. I think of those omnibus bills. I mean, that's one of the worst abuses of the parliamentary process the parliamentary world in the world has ever seen. No other country has done that. And why were they doing that? To close down debate and discussion. And people didn't relate that immediately to electoral reform. But I think they had a sense that things can be better. They should relate it to electoral reform because, and this is the shocker that, again, hurts my chances in South Rosedale, with a system that fairly represents the political preferences of Canadians, you won't have any more for those majority governments. they'll be dead as a dodo. Now, that's, having said that, I know he said we won't have majority, and I love majority, I love them. I don't know why people do.
I'll try to be brief because there are a number of people that are lined up. On compulsory voting, the trouble here is it's an empty gesture for most people. A number of years ago, while an election campaign was on, I asked the IT person in our department who has a degree in computer science, like Theo, who works for Ali, and I said, Van, are you going to be voting in the election? And he said, no. And I said, how come? And he said, look, I don't know anything about politics. I'm not interested in politics. I have no idea who the parties are. I have no idea who the candidates are, the leaders, what the issues are. So I leave it to you guys. You know what you're talking about. You go vote. So having people go and just cast is a totally empty gesture. Why are we encouraging people who aren't interested and are totally ignorant to the issues to cast a ballot? Then it becomes random. So, and look, if they're going to go vote for, in the media, I notice keep saying, doesn't matter who you vote for, as long as you vote. Well, look, it does matter. If you're going to vote for a racist, I prefer you stay at home. So, and if we are going to have compulsory voting, we have so many boutique tax credits. If you send your kid horseback riding, you can get their money back. Okay, if it's so important, rather than fining people, give them $50 to vote. Maybe that will increase voter turnout. Okay, but New Zealand, I don't know as much about New Zealand as Peter. He's been there, I haven't. But from what I read, there were both broken promises, and one of the promises that was broken is parties that said they were going to introduce proportional representation, and they didn't. Then when we finally got it, what happened? The party leaders disappeared behind closed doors for 6 weeks to start horse trading.
Not 6 weeks.
In the first election. That's from Teresa Arsenault's paper that I saw. But I defer, however long it was, to sort out the cabinet positions. They've talked about that proportional representation, that's what they've got in New Zealand, will give us more women. And it probably will. That will get elected, because the parties will be keen to have more women, more visible minorities, Aboriginals, disabled, and so on their thing. But what happened in New Zealand's first cabinet? Where does power lie in our parliamentary system? It lies in the cabinet, not with the backbenchers. So we ended up having an all-male cabinet. I think there may have been one woman. So the cabinet was less representative than it had been before with first past the post. So don't assume because you get a more representative parliament, you'll get a more representative cabinet. The reason we have equality in the cabinet now is because the power of the prime minister doesn't have to compromise with any other party to choose whomever he wants. I think one way to move forward on this whole issue of whether we have another electoral system is let's put power back in the hands of MPs. Let's have a free vote. Let Ali vote the way he thinks is best. And if he wants to take the pulse of the people, that's fine. If he wants to use his judgment, that's fine too. And if you don't like his judgment, throw him out next time.
I'll be really quick. The thing about mandatory voting is that I feel that voter turnout is a really important metric. When voter turnout goes down, it's a sign to us that essentially the equivalent of consumer confidence is down. We want to know that people are feeling apathetic, that they're feeling cynical, that they're feeling ignorant. That's a symptom of a larger problem, that we're not teaching civics well enough in school, that the political system has become too polarized, that it's becoming alienating, that the media isn't covering it perhaps in a way that's helpful. In the same way that we have a meter on the car telling us when our gas is low, taking the meter off doesn't give you more gas, it just makes you not know that you're about to run out of gas. So we could have an entire country where everyone's given up on the system, but voter turnout's 100. Great. I think it's the most important metric we have. When voter turnout goes up and down, we know that we're doing something right or something wrong. So that's my main concern, that we lose that gauge of how we're doing. And I'll just be devil's advocate on the online voting. All the hacks that we're hearing about weren't hacks where they went in and changed information. They went and just got some emails or got some, you said you could, any of your workers could go in and get my whatever. Well, I've got 25 bucks in my bank account. If they can get it and get it, I'd be really amazed. We do a lot of very large financial transactions online. We buy things online. We do our banking online. And as far as I know, no one snuck in and taken a single dollar from anyone in Canada, ever. So I just don't believe that security is a big problem. There's also really easy things you can do. For example, am I wrong? Does someone steal some money? Bangladesh?
Yes.
Okay. I said Canada. They should start using our system then, because clearly it's working here. No one's stolen my money, and again, I don't have much. There's only 25 bucks in there. But if any of you want to try and get it, go for it. But let me say one more thing. There's a very simple mechanism I've heard proposed to ensure that kind of thing doesn't happen, which is that everyone gets a unique anonymous PIN number, that it's not connected to your name. And later, after the election, you can go and see that your PIN number matches your vote. So it's not as if they all just go and disappear and it's not traceable. I would say that paper ballots actually have a larger opportunity for fraud than an online system. I'd rather have my money in the bank than lend it to you and say, hey, keep an eye on this. Make sure there's a scrutiny you're watching.
Stories that showed up in the news just a while ago, and by that I mean anywhere between now and 10 years ago. Sorry, my time is weak. But there were stories about people whose houses have actually been, like the ownership has been taken over online, and then they have been told to move out. They no longer own the house. And I think I heard that on BBC, and I think there was even some sort of cross-country checkup show about these situations.
I've heard of more people just breaking into a house with a crowbar.
I think we're off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
We got that. Push the red button. The red button.
Oh,
There you go. There you go.
Hello? Oh, yes. As an individual, I strongly believe in electoral reform, and I also think that Canada must have electoral reform. That being said, I'm thinking back to when we did have the referendum opportunity about 10 years ago, whenever it was. And I just remember this, that I have a friend who was given instruction in how to inform the public about what this was all about. And that was a very, as I remember, that was a very hurry-up process. There was not very much lead time. The people like he, who's very well-educated, was very frustrated by it because he really had trouble getting the ideas across to people. And then we had what we had. So that was an example of a referendum that was done very, very poorly, I think. And I don't need any convincing that going back to that method is probably not a very good idea at all. When I looked at your handout here, I thought, oh my gosh, how do you make any sense of this? KISS, keep it stupid, keep it simple, stupid. I don't really feel that I can make a knowledgeable decision about that with my background and so on. I really do think that my elected representative should be able, in forums like this, to listen to all of us and make a very educated decision for us. That's the way I feel.
Thank you. Given the number of questions we seem to have here, can we go through 3 or 4 people at a time?
Sure.
You can pose your questions, and then the panelists will each decide which one they're going to respond to.
Do you want to alternate that?
Yes, actually, sorry.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that I think you need to keep this. I think I'll get direct to my question. I think it's probably for Professor Russell. Thank you for being here as a graduate of your department. we have the OECD countries, as people have said, which are, we have the OECD countries that people have said that are the comparators. There's no perfect system, but what's the predominant one? I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure. And how well have they worked, with the odd exception that hasn't worked? That I think may help us in determining what may work best for us, given that our society is probably most similar to some of those other societies in the OECD countries.
Sure.
Sure, I'm just going to make a couple of quick comments and then with Ali's permission, a quick plea to the audience as well. Just on a few of the points that we've heard brought up. First, I think whatever system we come up with, really needs to take into account the relationship between the electorate and those that we're electing. This notion of clustering representatives within a municipality, while it makes sense from a proportional standpoint, I don't envision how I as a constituent would then go about going in to meet with my elected representatives to talk to them about issues that are important to me. If I've got 25 of them that are all representing me theoretically, I think a one-to-one relationship in however you come up with is very important. I think another really important point, talking about the referendums, and while I too share a lot of misgivings about how effective a referendum may be in terms of selecting a new system, I'm also very concerned about political spin and what may happen if, for whatever reason, the government is seen to be opportunistic or trying to take advantage of something that is going to be self-serving. And the example that I would serve up was the coalition crisis of 2008, where you had, through a number of mechanisms, a majority of the population, or very close to a majority of the population, believing that coalition governments were immediately illegitimate, which became hugely problematic. So I think that this is an example where the process is almost as important than the outcome, if not more important than the outcome. And the public perception of what's being done, whether people are engaged or not, is hugely important, lest we get into a situation where the whole legitimacy of our democracy gets called into question by some of the spin doctors that are employed by some of the political parties that are out there. I'm also a big supporter of lowering the voting age, as Dave talked about. I'd say go even as low as 14, tied into a civics curriculum in our high schools. I think this is something that is very much lacking, and perhaps an opportunity to address that issue. I'm going to make a quick point, if I may, off topic, and this is in relation to electoral reform municipally, which the panel is not dealing with, but I do also work with the local city councillor here, and those living in this community may be aware that our ward now has more than double the population of others in the city. We are circulating a petition in the community to compel council to take action on this year. If you're interested in talking about that or signing the petition, I'll be up front and would love to talk to any members of the audience that may be interested in that as well. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
One question, one answer.
First of all, thank you very much for accusing the hell of me. Came here with really firm opinions, but thank you very much for your expertise and making really confused, and that's a good thing. It's part of the learning process. I think in this whole exercise, there's something missing. And that part that's missing in electoral reform is I, as a consumer, do not know how an MP performs. There are no metrics. There's no information available about MPs, regardless of how they are elected. I have no ongoing information about how an MP works, what they do, how they perform against other MPs and against certain criteria. And my question is, do you think this is possible in our technology age, and would that add some credibility to our electoral process?
I think we might do some questions over there.